So well coordinated by Marla. This is the order we're going to do them in. So we got Jim Stewart. Michelle's not in here yet. Trevor Long's not here, so we'll go from Jim to Jeff. Edley, you're on, right? Yeah. Okay. Jim, let's go that far here. People are still coming in, so let's get them sit down. I'm going to give you a signal at 4 minutes. You have another minute to finish up, 5 minutes. All right.
I don't think this will go beyond that. Or to that. I think it's true. How does this come? I clicked on slideshow and right here. It's got a laser beam and go back. All right.
Okay. I'm glad to lay this off. This spring's been really busy for me, and a lot of good things, a lot of very stressful things. And one of the most stressful things is that we have a silver maple in our front yard that for the 16 years that we've lived there, it's provided shade and shelter, and when I have to go shovel the walks, it's not too deep there because the tree blocks a lot of that. The home that we live in was built in 1978, and the tree predates that by a long ways. And our tree is well known in the neighborhood, and that's thanks to Google Earth. That's what it's looked like for those 16 years that we've lived there. And that's what it looked like last week. And another view of it right there, but that was last week, taking a picture of it, that view there. So we were personally in the morning, and I tried to think that maybe we could do something about it. The little tips of some of these branches were still supple and green buds in it, but a lot of the bark was falling off at the bottom of it. So I had 3 arborists come out and look at it, and they just told me that there was really nothing that could be done, that it was, in fact, dead. And so last Friday, this is what happened. Oh, why did it go sideways like that? So it's gone. Thank you. And now that's what's there, a big stump. And we had them cut about a 2-inch slice out of the upper part of the main trunk. My son-in-law counted it down to about here and says that somewhere in here there's 50 rings. So we think that by the time we get it polished and everything, it's going to go. The guys that cut it down said probably 90 to 125 years old. So we're going to miss that, but we did measure the base. That's my wife over there on the far side holding the tape measure. This is me on this side. And at the very widest point, it was 58 inches. You can see right there, 58 inches. And at the very narrowest point, it was 45 inches. And at the ground, right here, with her holding over there, 74 inches, over 6 feet wide, the widest part of the ground. I'm never going to see a tree that big in that spot again in my lifetime. And the whole neighborhood's mourning for its loss, but we're going to put in 2 autumn blaze maples to replace it, and hopefully that will take away some of the sadness. Thank you.
Okay. Next.
We just use the thumb drive.
By the way, these things put on thumb drive.
Do that same.
Got your slide.
There, kind of loaded it quick, so let's see. It should be right there, top one. Yep, okay, and then there's a clicker here. Yep. This is my mic. Yep. Once we just started. Okay, do I need to turn this on?
Okay, just following the discussions from the past couple of days, this discussion is going to seem fairly familiar to all of you because you've all lived through this, but some of these issues continue, and I'm getting to a point where I find myself, I almost want to start evangelizing as I run into challenges. So as we listen to the discussions yesterday and today, and we're talking about cloud-based services, we're talking about security, network security, we're talking about collaboration, how we interact with the students, with non-traditional learners, everything that we see within higher education and in our part also in K-12. Flipped classrooms, which imply that, hey, when you leave the campus, you also have access to broadband. Digital learning, one-to-one. So in Utah, it ties straight into the flipped classrooms as well, where the education doesn't end when you go home, and there's an expectation that you have a level of access. I2, great presentation this morning. We're seeing 1 gig, 10 gig, 100 gig. But what we're seeing in some parts of Utah, and I'm sure you're seeing in your states, is a major cliff effect. And this cliff effect, this digital divide, is actually getting bigger and bigger from those that are on the opposite side of that. There's an expectation now that in society that when you're doing banking, you're doing healthcare, anything you do, we're all walking around with our smartphones, we're doing stuff, we're trying to get online. It's expected that actually what you do day to day, whether you're here or outside, you have the ability to get online. So what I'm saying is the digital divide is continuing to grow. It just may not be as apparent to all of us because there's been so much push in broadband across the country. So we mentioned that on the UAN side, we've been pushing this E-rate modernization effort to extend fiber into San Juan County and out to Daggett. Well, when you meet with those community members, it comes straight home. And when you spend time working on this project, it comes right home. It's like water, and it's actually defended like water. We put 3 generations of microwave into these areas, and we serve the schools well, but we're starting to run out of, we're starting to run out of rope, and there's other folks that want to, there it is right there, that want to put straws into this broadband. It's that bad. I was staying in Mexican Hat, Utah, getting ready for a meeting down in Monument Valley, and we were lucky when I'm doing tests to see a fractional T1, and that's being served by a large community there that is really at the tail end of a rope. So let me just catch myself up here. So it is getting defended. In fact, I see folks within the community on the education side, the government side, and we're starting to talk about broadband and how can I tap into that because our broadband is so poor. It puts people into really awkward situations. And often UEN is the one that has to come in there and kind of facilitate that discussion to make sure we can serve our customers, but we're also trying to be a good community partner. And this issue continues to grow because now we've gone from fiber and 1 gig down to Blanding, Utah to 10 gig. When I get south of Blanding, I'm suddenly dropping to 180 meg. That's a big challenge when there's expectation upstream that everybody has that same level of access. And when they go home, they have that same level of access. So it's a problem. Out in Daggett County, community members were saying, all it takes is 1 or 2 people turn on Netflix at night. We don't have internet.
1 minute.
Okay, we don't have internet. So this problem continues to grow. How do we get the broadband into these areas? They're hard, they're cost intensive, but it's like rural electrification. We need to start talking more and more about, yes, Jim always wears a tie. Jim's gone with me onto these out walking out in Blackwood Valley, trying to find and get these community meetings going. I thought that was so interesting because I kind of feel like that. But when you look at the broadbandification, it ties right back to some of the old stuff you see from rural electrification. And the fact is, people need this regardless where they are, where they live. And right now it's a challenge because we need it in the libraries, we need it at home. And the fact is that there's actually a lot of parts of this country that aren't connected. But we all take it for granted. Society takes it for granted. We've got to figure out how do we make that big leap to get to the next stage. So that's what I've got.
Good,
So,
thank you.
Jeff, you have a question?
yeah.
So do you think this means we need to have a policy change at the Fed level? E-rate extended to the colleges, libraries, health organizations, but didn't extend to the end user like the original 1934 top compact.
I can tell you that while I see efforts nationally to try to do this, there's still a lot of work to do, and I even see it on an urban level. So when we talk about learning and we go into an urban area, parents and districts are really concerned that not every student leaves that school with the ability to continue to do the schoolwork they need to without them being driven to the library, to McDonald's, someplace where they need access. And that's not exclusive to rural. That's happening everywhere, and that's a big concern. You hear the Lifeline discussions going on right now, so it's a big issue, and I think there's a lot more discussion required in additional programs. So.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Is Trevor doing a puppet show?
Hi. Yep. Oh, I hope I don't have that formatted for Mac.
We can put you later. You need to do something different.
Oh,
Trying to work on it.
my flash drive is got a Mac OS format,
Okay.
file system
Let's
format. Have me go right after the next one.
Todd Smith?
So the last Westnet that I attended was a year ago in Boise. And it seemed like everybody was talking about running. I think Kelly and Michelle had a presentation on running, and Mark was doing some running, and I think there were some others, but everybody's talking about running. So I didn't want to be left out of the loop a little bit. But I am not a runner, as you can tell. I'm more of a ham radio operator, and we have this really weird stigma about having our head in the clouds and always looking up, seeing where the next antenna's at. Kind of cool. But I have been involved in several marathons, but never actually running before. I have a group of amateur radio operators that actually provide communication support for races around Southeast Idaho and stuff like that. And what we found is that it's really difficult to, well, it's really easy to keep track of all the runners on paper logs. You know, the writing goes pretty fast and stuff like that. But the problem comes when the officials come to you and say, hey, can you tell us what runner number 67 is? Or how many people have run by mile marker 23 or something like that. And so I decided to dust off the .NET software and, you know, break out with my old programming skills and try and do something to help meet that need. So what is, there we go, there you go. So this is the one we did just last month, the Teton Dam Marathon in Madison County, around Rexburg, Idaho. It's a relatively small, easy course.
I mean, it's the same length, right? But there's only about, it's all downhill for the most part. We had about 200 runners that were running the half and the full marathons. There were a bunch of other races going on, a 10K, a 5K, and some kids races and stuff like that too that were close into the finish line. But so we put operators at every place there's a water drop, so about every other mile or so. And we had 2 operators at every station. What we've done in the past is just track like some of the lead runners, like the lead female, lead male runner, and maybe the last runner stuff. But this year we decided to do all 200 and keep track of them, which was a challenge in and of itself. So I wrote this program, named it Marathon Log. I don't really like the name that much. We'll probably do something different in the future here, but it's got a very basic interface. We can, does the point work? Yeah, so we can go into the courses and we can create some courses and then some corresponding checkpoints to go along with whatever courses are there. We can import the users, and then basically when we run, we select a mile marker wherever they're at a checkpoint, and then we can enter, multiple runners that are going by at the same time. It's all keyboard driven. I mean, you can use the mouse, but to facilitate operation, we've made it so that it's all keyboards, tabs, spaces, and commas, make it really easy to enter runners quickly. One of the things we implemented was this feature where we worked with the race officials to figure out about how long it would take a runner to get from one checkpoint to the other. So if they were late, then we would flag them with this red thing in their log entry so that we knew that we were missing a runner. And then we could, call radio operators at nearby checkpoints or send one of our vehicles out to, look at the course or whatever and see if we could find somebody that was late.
1 minute.
1 minute, whoa. Then we also flag it green when the runners cross the finish line and stuff like that. So one of the issues that we had is with relays. We had some runners that were running a relay. And so when they all had different bib numbers. And so one would cross a checkpoint, but that team at the next checkpoint would be a different runner. And so we ended up with all of these red things at the bottom that, we didn't know where they were because they really had dropped out of the race because the rest of their team was moving on. So this was the strength of the software right here where we built this search feature in there. We could search for a name. So a woman would come up to me and say, hey, my 79-year-old father's running the relay. I dropped him off at the start line at 6:30 this morning. Haven't seen him since. Can you tell me where he's at? Yeah, what's his bib number? I don't know his bib number. What's his name? So we look up his name and we can tell exactly where he's been. We can do the same thing by bib numbers and see what time or roughly what time they crossed each of the mile markers. And we can do the same thing with the mile markers to see what runners have passed a specific mile marker. So this is a little bit of our setup at our net control station where kind of the headquarters. We had 2 stations running, one here and one here to handle all the traffic. We actually logged 72 radio transmissions an hour, so more than 1 a minute, trying to keep track of all these runners with almost 2,000 log entries for the 6 hours of the race. So anyway, kind of fun stuff.
Thank you very much. Whoever's repaired is happy.
Without the code.
So technical difficulty. My USB drive was formatted for macOS. And then Dave was nice enough to loan me his, and his was NTFS. I couldn't write that on my Mac. So Jeff loaned me his. Okay, so keeping with some of my themes from past Westnets, I had some big life events I talked about last time. My second oldest graduated from high school, and my oldest got married. So now I have a son-in-law. Still getting used to that one. So that was stressful in itself, so that meant we needed Cruise 3.0. So we took a cruise to the Eastern Caribbean, We took the whole family this time around, so son-in-law went, which was actually pretty good. These are some of the stops. We started Miami, Half Moon Cay, went to St. Thomas, San Juan, and Grand Turk, and it was great. But if you'll notice this little arrow about right here, well, let's see, that would have been day 2, I think. This was me. Never gotten seasick before, but that Eastern Caribbean goes out into the Atlantic a little bit, so it's a little bit choppier, and I was miserable. So, and that was steak and lobster night too. But the doctor on the ship just said, "Hey, you need a shot," and it was a big old shot. That hurt. My daughter was even in the, my second oldest was in the infirmary, and he said, "Okay," and I started to pull up my sleeve, and he said, "No." All right. Yeah, that hurt. And then I was out. And the rest of the cruise, that was great. So here's what the rest of the cruise was like. Half Moon Cay is the one at the top. Awesome sand and sun. And then San Juan is the middle one. So we're actually at one of the forts. I forgot the name of it. Just beautiful. And then some of the food experience, if you've ever been on a cruise before. Grand Turk, and then a family picture there. So in the middle, those are my 3 girls. And that leads to the next question of, when's 4.0? Sometime in 2017. We don't have a date yet, but that's our plan. Any cruise questions?
Do you have to marry a daughter to go on a cruise?
It's a good reason to go on one. Yeah, I can't think of a reason not to go. Even if you do, well, yeah, even if you do suffer from motion sickness, there's ways around that. And I normally don't. That's what kind of surprised me. So.
Sure.
No more doom and gloom. Right, so here's my thoughts. So UAVs/drones have come a long way. The one I was flying today had camera sensors in it and obstacle avoidance sensors in it. And it's all on a commercial product nowadays. So you could fly it straight towards the side of your house, but it'll actually avoid it. It'll stop doing those kind of things. You can actually tap on the tablet I had. You tap on the person and it would identify the object and say follow. And you can put the controller down and walk around the park. Or have it follow your granddaughter around, which is what I do. So there were some challenges when I first started, trying to find the right screen. This didn't work. Yes, I do have an FAA registration number, and no, I'm not going to tell you or show you, because that's information I like to keep. Windows 10 is cool now because they apparently bought a user space from Canonical, which is Ubuntu. And the latest Windows 10 allows you to install a Linux subsystem for Windows 10. And it runs on top of the Windows kernel, not the Linux kernel. So you can actually do an apt-get install Apache, and it'll run. And it's sort of opening a weird new paradigm inside of Windows. So they're looking towards a future where Windows 10 Server can run either Windows app or a Linux app in the same kind of space. 3D printing is still a fascination for me. I like printing out lightsabers and
Uh-oh, we're updating to 10. Okay. Don't update to Windows 10. Yeah, so printed my grandkid a lightsaber and she runs around the house with it now and it says BB-8 all the time. Okay, so here they are when they're supposed to play. They're both walking. She is now a JetBlue agent. She puts on the headphones and takes calls from Grandpa and asks what seat I want and tells me to put my seatbelt on. She's almost 3 and she's flown 11 times. She has a lot of miles already. And she's quite a soccer head. Her dad built her a goal in their kitchen when she just started walking and bought her #1 ball. And she was kicking it into the goal before she could ride a bike or walk. So there we go. Anyways, she does fit in the overhead carry bag slot. So that's nice to know if I ever need to put her up there for a nap. Duo, another pitch for Duo. You guys really need to play with Duo in your home machines, in your Amazon account, your Google account, 2-factor authenticate everything right on your phone. It's really nice. And it's free. We have doves in our front yard. That was sort of cool. My smoker is still going great. It does actually. Yeah, that's the dove. No, actually, it's a pig. What was a pig? And they use PID sensors for tuning the meat temperatures now. So if you don't have to say a target temperature for the grill, you say, I want to hold the meat at exactly 160 degrees for 4 hours and then up to 190 degrees for 4 hours. So maintain the temperature perfectly. So I don't even have to watch it anymore.
Is that Bluetooth driven?
Arduino and Pi driven, and then Wi-Fi to my house. And my bike restoration project is coming along quite nicely. I've actually replaced the seat with the back end of a skateboard. So it can get wedged fiberglass coated with some cool designs on it. So that's my 1973 Honda CB500, which apparently on Amazon they're going for like $8,000. Did not know that. Okay, and my last slide. You guys can enjoy that.
So, as I'm walking, you guys are doing a great job, and you're working very hard. You are invited to the reception and dinner if you'd like to attend, which I probably didn't formally do, and Matt and I didn't talk. Anyways, if you'd like to join, at least for the reception part, please do. And there was been some questions about spouses. I apologize. I think I sent an email out to let me know if you want your spouses to attend. But your spouses, if they're here with you, or guests, or whatever, are welcome to attend tonight. A number of people have talked to me, so, you know, but if there's somebody here that you would like to bring in, feel free. So I'm here to which button do I hit? Okay. So I'm here to talk about national parks, which I've talked to you about before, but I'm going to talk to you about it again. So this is the 100th year of the National Park celebration, so I encourage you to celebrate. And as you know, I think this is a valuable thing that the United States has done, and I think it's the best thing we've probably do on a regular basis. I hope everybody appreciates it. I like this quote because we are technologists, but hopefully that's the beauty of lightning talks, is hopefully there's some outside things we do as well. And so my husband and I are working on national parks. If I want to hit this button, will it work? No, can I go to this URL?
Yeah, it should work, yeah.
What button do I hit this? Like enter thing?
Sorry.
Or do a real button?
No button.
So I'll just remind you that there is a nice National Park Service webpage. Every national park has a really great webpage that has maps and details and lodging and places to stay, and hopefully you're aware of that. There's a fabulous IMAX movie out right now that is on the national park. So in your area, if you look and check it out, I encourage you to just go to this webpage. There's some fabulous just short videos that are shot in various. You've got helicopter shots, as you all know. IMAX movies are fabulous. So it is playing in Denver right now. For those of you that are in Denver, why did that go to a different place? There we go. I think I sent this to all of you because you were coming into Colorado. For those of you that aren't from Colorado, there's a couple YouTubes that are also listed here. This is a good friend of mine, Kelly Wheeler. Actually, she was named something different at the time. Was my college roommate. Her husband does documentaries. He's done a number of documentaries, but he's done a fabulous one on the Colorado National Parks. And so I would encourage you to go take a look at that. This is his video. These are showing on a number of PBS stations around the country. You have to find your own PBS station that's showing that, but certainly if you're from Colorado, I highly encourage you to go take a look at that as well. What I've been doing since January, we were at the January Westnet meeting. My husband and I went to the Saguaro National Park, which I think you are all familiar with. It's split into two. We had a fabulous day. If you didn't stay for the weekend afterwards, there was snow. You'll see snow on the mountains out here. It was a crisp, beautiful day. There was tons of water. All the waterfalls were running. The birds were beautiful, so fabulous. Chico has their meeting every year near Florissant. It's at the Nature Place, and I have not been down there for about 10 years, but right near there is the Florissant Fossil Beds National Monument. So if you ever go to Chico, it's a fabulous little place to look around. And right down the road, just west of Cortez, is the Canyon of the Ancients National Monument, which we were actually at last year and had hiked in. And I didn't feel like I got my fill, so we went down this weekend. And there's a fabulous ranch there you can stay, Canyon of the Ancients Ranch. And it's right near here, wine tasting. It's a great little valley, the McElmo Valley. And just beautiful, beautiful national monument. So, and my plan, although it is supposed to be very hot, heat wave, we're going to head down to Chaco Cultural Natural Park. So this is not my picture. I haven't been there yet, but I'm very excited. And then hopefully Saturday we're going to go to Aztec Ruins National Monument, which is also just south of here. So you are in a fabulous area. The boat was just, let's have all our meetings here in Fort Lewis. So Matt, I hope you liked hosting. There's all sorts of things to see here. So my encouragement is this is one of America's, I've traveled a lot. I've traveled around the world. Many of you have. This is something the United States started. This is something we do better than anybody else. These national parks are really, really an important part of our country. So hopefully you support them. I actually donate significant funds to keep these going and to make sure that our government continues to support these and keep them in place. Colorado and Utah are fortunate. We have a yeoman's amount of the national parks and national monuments, but California has a great number. We also plan to go to Acadia in October, so that'll be my first kind of northeast park. So that's my ditty. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's your stick. So
Oh, it is. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you know. Put that in there. I'm just going to take 1 second. Don't start the clock yet. This isn't his time. I'm sorry.
Marla, one thing you forgot to mention is that when you turn 65, you can get
Oh!
yourself a golden
No.
access passport.
62.
Is it 62?
But you have to get one at a national park. They won't sell them to you except at a gate. And so, and it's a great deal. It's what, 30 bucks, 20 bucks. Rest of your life, you never pay to enter a national park, a national monument. I am not 62, but I'm married to a guy who is. The agony is you have to have that person with you when you go to a national park. So, well, I went to go to the Great Smoky Mountains with my sister, and I realized I was going to actually have to pay because I didn't have money. Here he is. But the other thing we found out is that the people are stealing these because they are so valuable. So hold on to it, and they're checking IDs very carefully to make sure you are the person that's supposed to go in. So anyways, this is Dave's picture. There you are. That's the the Westnet 30th anniversary photo from the meeting. So thank you, Dave, for taking that. Fine job. Well, is it not focused? We can zoom in on various people. Colin was not looking.
There is.
The wind was blowing.
Squinting into the sun.
Yes, here we go. Thank you.
Can we just start it?
Yeah, that'd be fine, thanks. So I'm gonna follow up, unbeknownst to Todd, this is almost a perfect follow-up to that. I'm also heavily involved in amateur radio, and I do a lot of the same event support kind of stuff that he does. We provide communications for bike races and foot races and things like that. Basically as practice for real natural disasters, fires, things like that. So about a year ago, I became the technical chair for the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. The first thing I decided to do is that I just had too much time on my hands and needed another big project and needed to play with more IT stuff. So we have radio repeaters on several mountaintop and high building top locations that relay the signal from a handheld radio or mobile radio to a much bigger area. And they're basically just standalone devices that are sitting up there. They just listen, they repeat it, and that's it. And we have no control. No, if you need to do anything, you have to drive up a mountain or sometimes hike up a mountain if it's the winter time. So I decided we needed better control and more flexibility in doing this. So what I did, I started designing, this is my workshop at home, or what was left of it. I started buying these 30 dB gain dishes for 802.11 networking. These particular dishes are made by a company called Ubiquity, which is basically a not quite enterprise version of the same stuff we use, on our campuses. However, these are 2-watt radios behind the 30 dB dish, and they're all 802.11 AC 2x-MIMO radios, and they're running above all the ISM channels. They're running licensed in the ham radio spectrum, so I don't have to deal with all the Wi-Fi stuff, and I don't interfere with anybody else's. So after I got the hardware, I had to start figuring out all the computer end of it and all the interfacing stuff, so I moved down to the other disaster in my house, the electronics bench, and started wiring all this stuff out, figuring out all the interfacing. Once I got that all kind of ironed out, it was time to buy some more hardware. This particular device is kind of sort of a special sound card. It takes the analog radio stream from the receiver at the repeater site, digitizes it, assigns it a timestamp from a GPS and a signal strength, and throws it out on the Ethernet and sends it over to a server. So this was a good idea, and everything was great, but I needed a way to get all that audio figured out, path to all the right places and everything. We actually use Asterisk to do it. So instead of a telephone picking up and dialing a number, each time somebody hits the push to talk button on the radio, it dials an extension, routes the audio to the other side. The call is complete when they let off of the push to talk button, and the extension is closed and hung up. It gives huge flexibility. So now I have all that figured out, it's time to put the networking in. So we went with a company called Microtik, which is it's a Latvian company. These little boxes are about $100. It's a 24 port, that's not a 24, we use 24 port, all gig, non-blocking. It's got SFPs for, and it's everything. It's a switch, a router, it's a firewall, it has everything you can imagine. And it's got a language very similar to the Juniper language. So for $100, it's just amazing what these things can do. So I've got my hardware, I've got my software, I've got it all figured out. It's time to head to the mountains. This is actually our radio tower that we have on Horsetooth Mountain just west of Fort Collins. That is a 188-foot tower that we basically have this whole cluster of antennas right here. And there's Channel 31 from Denver has a remote station we share with a bunch of commercial sites. This is actually at UNC, on the roof of the elevator shaft at UNC, and that's actually looking about 38 miles back to Horsetooth, and the other one looks almost 40 miles to Buckhorn Mountain, which is just northwest of Fort Collins. Okay. So, unfortunately, yes, that is me right there. This has been an unfortunate part of having to do this project, is that I had to start climbing these things, hanging off the towers. But we got the whole system in. A couple more pictures of that. Yeah, that was the Buckhorn installation. We were putting the dishes up there. And then go inside and we wired up all the racks. This is all the radio gear that's inside. That's what an actual repeater looks like. And yeah, most of them, even commercial sites, are that messy. All the gear there. So then the whole system's up and working. Now we've got this beautiful network. I now have, and see, this is another site, interesting sites we have. That's above the Budweiser Event Center. We have a repeater hanging in off of the ceiling above the ice center for the Colorado Eagles. Now I've got control. Each one of my sites, I can remotely turn on, turn off, monitor the current, monitor the voltage, everything else. When there's something wrong, I can just log in, click a button, and reset it or turn it off until I can get up the mountain. So huge flexibility added. This is a voter project that Asterisk again has allowed us to put multiple receivers on the same frequency and packet by packet vote which one's the strongest signal and use that packet to the transmitter. So as you're moving or driving or things are in and out, it's always got a rock solid signal. It's worked out really nice. The network's grown a little bit now. It comes all the way down to, you can see all through New Mexico, all through Colorado, up to Cheyenne. We actually have a VPN link up into Montana as well, and it continues to grow. So it's getting big. It shouldn't even show us 0 minutes. Okay, we're monitoring the whole thing with Observium. We've got like 584 devices out of the network. We're doing the same thing as everybody else with SmokePing and Rancid and the whole, all the network monitoring tools. Nope, I guess that was my last one. So anyways, as soon as I get back from here tomorrow, Friday morning, I'm heading up to Horsetooth to put the very last piece in and the whole system will be complete. So that's what I've been doing my time.
What's that? Are you ready for the hook? Well, I've got a device that's going to keep me on time.
While Barry's setting up, I'll just use a small little phrase for reminder. So if you are not on the Westnet mailing list and you would like to be, or you know somebody who should be, let me know. If you haven't ever known, we have a kind of goofy, it's called Westnet steering. It's not really a steering list, it's called Westnet list. I didn't come up with that.
There you go.
And I don't actually maintain the list, Steve Mulder does, so you'll see this funny kind of exchange where you'll send it to me and then I'll send it to you and send it back. So it's not automated, but it works. There is a steering committee for this group. Again, if you'd like to be on it, let me know. I have just updated the CIO steering committee list, and if again you'd like to be on that, you are. There is a CIO list that we only use for the CIO meetings, which I'm not planning to rename. But if there's CIOs you know should be on that, or CTOs or CISOs, let me know. We'll update that list as well.
Cool, Barry.
Okay, Google, set a timer for 5 minutes. Okay, so want to talk about some wearables, but before we get there, I want to give you a quick solar update from a year ago when I talked about my solar system. My management system for that gives me all these really cool stats. So I produced 13.5 megawatt hours of power in the last 20 months. That's equivalent to about 4.5 million AA batteries. And my carbon footprint offset is 245 trees. And I pay a $9, I call it a grid use customer fee, which is pretty cheap for Rocky Mountain Power to be my battery. And and for the use of the grid. And I've given away 1,231 kilowatt hours to charity in Utah with Rocky Mountain. If you have any excess come in your March bill, I believe it is, you lose it basically. And my system's overbuilt for some reasons. So I want to give you a cashback update. Last year I mentioned that I'd switched over from just almost putting everything on a Delta American Express miles card over to cashback and maximizing everything I could find. I've accumulated about $3,000 in cashback in my last year since I last gave my talk, and my biggest is 1,000 with my Chase Inc. Business Plus, which I use to pay my daughter's tuition to dental hygienist school and also her kit. A lesson learned: do not cancel your Delta Sky Miles card. I canceled mine because I didn't want to pay the $200. 3 days later, my son's laptop failed and needed to have a new hard drive. Had I still had that in place, it would have been covered by American Express under warranty because it was out of the manufacturer's. It was out of Apple Care, but they would have covered it for another year. And then it also cost me, and I've lost two companion ticket options. So your $200 you pay for that Delta Sky card is worth it just in the companion fares each year if you use them. And thanks for the tip, whoever it was last year that gave me the tip on Ebates. I knew about it. I knew about Fat Wallet, but Fat Wallet and Ebate have now, or Ebates have been now combined together. And I started using them, and I've made, not a lot, but some money. So let's talk about wearables. Last year, near the end of August, for a belated birthday present to myself, and I just learned today that I share a birthday with the national parks, but I'm not 100 years old. So I got interested in smartwatches, and at first when they came out, I thought, that's really stupid. Why would you want to have a smartwatch? Because I have a lot of watches. And so I found out in the fall that the Moto 360 version 2 was coming out, and they're having a big fire sale. And we'll go into this in a minute, but my net income on the purchase is $66.14, meaning I've got the watch and I made $66.14 on the purchase. So why Moto? They're more affordable and almost as capable as the Apple Watch. I'm not a fan of iOS. A lot of you that know me, I'm not. I have an iPad, but I'm kind of more of an Android. Though I love Apple, I have Apple stock, and I run Apple computers. I just never really liked iOS. And to me, the Motorola watches seem to have a better design. In fact, one of the best designs of the Android Wear type watches. It looks a lot more. I mean, it's right here. It looks a lot more like a real watch. It's round. It's the bands and stuff look like a real watch. And I have a Moto phone, so it kind of made sense. So what I really like about it is I can do different watch faces. There's like an endless array of watch faces you can do on these things. And I can change the color schemes to match my mood or my wardrobe. Right now I've got well, you can't see it because the timer's on, but I've kind of got a color that matches my wardrobe. I control tunes when I'm listening on my phone to tunes. I can pause and play and that kind of stuff without grabbing my phone. I can just touch my watch. The notifications are kind of cool. They can also be very distracting depending on how you've got them set up. But it's nice to be able to see a text from my wife when I'm in a meeting and just glance down at my watch and, we'll know what's going on. And because it's pretty obtrusive, pretty obvious when you're checking your phone and stuff in certain meetings. I like the call control. I like to be able to answer and ignore calls from my watch rather than getting my phone out. And my very favorite, by the way, Dave, thanks for the lead in on this. With the dual mobile with the university, I actually can approve those logins from my watch, which is way cool. It's a little cumbersome on the Android. I don't know how it is on iPhone or on the Apple Watch, but because you have to do it twice, you have to acknowledge and approve it. You have to do two clicks. And the battery lasts all day usually. If I'm traveling in the car and there's lots of navigation things and things like that, my watch is telling me I have 7 seconds, right? Yep. And so that's my favorite feature. And like I say, sometimes it dies before the end of the day, but it charges really fast. And it seems to get better with each update. Better battery life and fewer errors every time there's an update from Android. Dislikes, it has a few design flaws, like the plastic spacers for the metal bands tend to break after a few months and you have to order new ones. It's crashed a couple times requiring a complete reset, which is not that huge of a deal. It's probably a good thing to do every 3 months anyways. And there's no speaker. None of the Moto 360s have speakers, so you can't, use it as a phone. And then there's I'm not gonna go into the detail on there. That's all the detail of what I did, what I paid, all the things I got back from all the things I did. And so I actually made money on the purchase, which I would not have purchased a smartphone unless if it would have cost me any money out of my pocket, I wouldn't have done it. I have thousands of those.
All right. I took Marla's suggestion and I went ahead and went to National Park. Yay. When I got here Monday, I skipped dinner and thought, oh, I have a couple hours. I'll run over there. It's about 30 miles from here. And then I got up to the little booth to get in, and I didn't have my park pass either. And I was like, oh, I don't want to pay for it. And I was like, it was like almost 6 o'clock by that point, or 5:30, and I was like, I have one. Can I have my husband send it to me, and I can show you? And he's like, I'll just let you go in. so sometimes you get lucky. I don't know, but so I went to enter in. I kind of went through this tunnel. It was pretty cool. It's all about the ancestry of people who lived under cliffs. And I don't know if you guys have been down here or not. My husband's talked about this for many years, and I haven't been there. So I thought, for a quick trip, I'll go down and take a look at it. What the park ranger did tell me is if I travel another 20 miles, I can have a 6 mile loop and get all this information. So it's about 1,000 years of history is I think what he told me. And so that's what I did. So it took me round trip probably about 3 hours. That's including walking and getting out and doing all that stuff. But so I just thought I'd show you. My pictures aren't very good. They're from my iPhone. Sorry, Barry. But it's all about people living in pit houses and the life that they kind of went through. And the trails to get there, if anybody wants to go for a quick trip, it's like 100 yards is what I went on. Now they do have trails that you can go on long hikes. I of course had sandals that were kind of high heels, and I didn't do that. So it is pretty interesting though. Some of them, I think he counted 16 different families lived in stuff like this. And that just kind of amazed me as I was taking a look at this. And this is from far away. Apparently you can go on one of the hikes down into this. So you guys are familiar with it, obviously. But Square House Tower, as I was looking at these different ways that they actually lived, and they said sometimes you couldn't even tell that the house was there because it was just covered on top and it just looked like ground. But underneath it was kind of a little community. So Sun Point, this one I like too, just because of the tunnels. This is a pretty good example. They literally lived underground in a lot of these places, which I thought was, you think about the history and how people used to really live around here, and you think about all the benefits and things that we have kind of take for granted today, but pretty interesting. The Sun Temple was another one. I didn't get to see the top, but I guess if you look at the top, it's more like this. It was something they referenced as never really being completed, but this is one of the villages. I know it's really hard to see, but if you look underneath the cliff, and they use the cliffs for protection and stuff like that. Again, can you imagine how many people were just underneath there living in tiny little places? And then, of course, it was during the rainstorm, so I got a little rainbow on the way back. And I went to the point overlook and I was like, oh, this is beautiful. And I sat there and I was looking at it and how pretty it was. And then I got a call. And it was to give a talk in church on Father's Day. So then I looked at this. That's all. Thank you.
So your lesson learned from Exeter is the reason they left, which is the real mystery. Why were they all living there, and why did they all leave? Is climate change.
Drought.
So
Yeah.
then you're burning your fossil fuel. They believe it was water. That it dried out significantly as a sustained long drought. They mostly moved down here to the Grand. And the ancestors are still living, so they're just living in a different area.
Okay, so on the last one, and I think we're gonna be on time pretty close here, so. I've decided that I've taken up a cause like Marla. I've decided that we're using too much water. Now, this is not necessarily a new thing. Todd Barrett, who had to leave here a little while ago, the one who got me interested in this, about understanding more about what your water usage is. So I started with the concept that there's this thing called the Ratio, a smart sprinkler controller. And the thing that makes it a little different from others is there's a generation of them that now check on weather conditions and will then adjust your sprinkling habits based on the soil that you have, what the weather's going to be like, the evaporation rate out of your soil, all kinds of factors, and actually adjust your water usage. So to get ready for that, I had to do a little bit of study first on my water usage. It's kind of interesting, and it was actually very enlightening to me. I've lived in this house for 23 years and didn't really realize this, but in the course of a year, so the last year, I used 360,000 gallons of water. Okay? It's called T-gallons is how they measure it. And that's 360,000 gallons of water. The average, of course, the highest one was 91,000 gallons in the month of August. The average, of course, those highest months is 66,000 gallons per month, right?
How many acres is your lawn or square feet?
Less than a quarter acre.
Okay.
Okay. So in the months when you don't use water, it's about 6,000 gallons per month. Okay. So you're using, at least we're using 11 times as much water in the summer as we are in the winter. And if I take that across the month there, about 2/3 of that annual usage is going on the lawn. So really, there really is a lot of water going out somewhat to waste. So Amazon has everything. They have this sprinkler controller. Its sale price, initially its list price is $199.99. Okay, $200. And Todd was the one that alerted me to the fact that this controller qualifies for a rebate from what's called the Central Utah Water Conservancy District. And they will give you a $100 rebate if you install this right kind of controller that saves water. Okay, so not only did Amazon offer me a gift card on that, I happened to be over Memorial Day weekend, so I got $50 gift card and a $100 rebate. I get this thing for $49. So it's not quite as altruistic as perhaps Marla's national parks thought. I'm really more concerned about I got these things for $50, right? So then I had to go in to calculate my water usage on the actual controllers. I turned on every zone. I had 6 zones. Turned them on and made sure all the other water was off in the house. Turned them on for 10 minutes. Measured my water meter at the beginning, water meter at the end. It measures in cubic feet. And I divided it by 10, so I got the cubic feet per minute. Multiplied it by 7.48. That's how many gallons per minute each zone produces. And then this is my zone time. So that's total gallons per zone that I produce in a watering. And so in Provo City, they do not have irrigation water, they use culinary water. And if you notice on that earlier slide, they double the price in the summer. They charge you twice as much per T-gallon as in the summer as in the winter. So if I multiply all of that out, I use almost 4,000 gallons per watering. And at their summer rate, that's $4.50. And so if I can save about 11 waterings over the course of the summer, I've paid for the controller, basically, right? Then Ratio has some calculations that you have to come up with what's called a precipitation rate that plugs that into their, I then put that into their website. I go to their website, and I'm a little worried about hacking now after Dave's someone's hacking my water controller. Put in that data, and then over the course of, I've been doing this since the 1st of June. At least when I captured this, I was as well. We've been 1, 2, 3, 4 waterings. I've used almost 16,000 gallons. If the controller saves water because it adjusts your rate, then it will put it down here. So if it doesn't water because of rain, it will tell you how many gallons that it saved over the course of the watering. So got this up and running. Haven't done a lot yet with the intelligent control based on the type of soil and type of grass and all that kind of stuff. There'll be some more settings available. So this is my summer project. And by the way, I also ran my first 10K last Saturday. I actually finished second in my age group. So that's either saying something about my performance or something about my age group.
What was the other guy?
He was about 45 seconds ahead. And if I didn't know that, I'd have sped it up a little. Anyway, thanks. Oh, you got one? The new guy. All right, come on down. All right.
Yes, please. If they're too big to email, put them on one that is too small.
I need some help. I have a PDF. Okay.
Next, Kelly's going to come next year and tell us the zero speed.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with PDF.
We'll have to water. So I'm gonna spend my year getting that freezer out of my basement.
And I have been talking to Fabian, who hopefully we'll all talk to you about inspirational running, taking over Westnet.
Yeah. PDF first.
Told him to
Yeah.
talk to Mark, talk to Kelly.
Actually, I'm just gonna talk.
Get him convinced.
No problem. Hello, everyone. I've been called the new guy. I'll introduce myself here. My name is Brian Bolt. Some of you may know another Brian from Boise State, Brian McDevitt. Anybody remember Brian McDevitt? Yeah. I think he usually leaves an impression, right? That's kind of what Brian does. He's a good guy. He hired me in 2005, which was really a big thing, a big part of my career was when he hired me and I came into the central IT office. I'm gonna get started here. I had about 15 minutes to figure out what I was gonna come up with, so I apologize to some of you for not watching or paying very close attention to some of the things you were doing. This PowerPoint and presentation is like 15 minutes old. I wasn't quite sure what the format was, but I think I got it. 2 parts to this. This is a project that I did about, let's see, it's 2016, 3 years ago. What we wanted to do was to get rid of some grass. So there's a personal motivation to get rid of some grass, reduce some mowing, and that resulted in, hey, why don't we just plant a big concrete back patio with a nice pergola? So that was the objective, that was the goal. And then we thought, well, what about a fire pit? So added a fire pit as well. But in order to start doing these kinds of things in the subdivision, you got to ask for permission first or forgiveness later. I did the permission first thing. So a little bit more about me. When I graduated high school, my parents were in the construction industry, building dairy barns, which is kind of unique. And so I kind of had that bug about building things. And another thing that I like is precision. So AutoCAD and building things, that all came together. I went to school for drafting at the College of Southern Idaho in Twin Falls. And as a result, I just kind of love drafting. What I did in order to ask for permission from the Homeowners Association was I downloaded Google SketchUp, which at the time was free, and said, I'm just going to create a 3D model of all of this, and then I'll send it to the Homeowners Association. Hopefully they'll say yes, and I can be on my way.
So this was all done in SketchUp. This was just the plot plan view. Where's the house at? What's the plan? And you can scroll through these a little bit. Let's see, let's go back to the PDF.
PDF, okay, sorry.
And so if we just go through the 3D rendering, this is the pergola here. There's an existing shed. That's just a skeleton. It's actually finished, so don't mind that. And then this was the fire pit with the bench that we were planning. And so SketchUp was really cool. I was able to do a fly-through AVI graphic or a video, send that over to the homeowners association and get this all passed. SketchUp also has a component where you can convert the 3D drawing into a plan view and actually do essentially architectural drawings. So I included that as well. There's just some more cutaways and so forth. And now I think we can go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Let's see, showed you that one. This is the finished product. So it's a little bit hard to see down here, but we've got a stepped concrete patio, and then we built the pergola. And luckily for me, this was all rough cut timber, so I had to find that somewhere in Boise. But luckily for me, I had a helping hand. His name is Uncle Doug. He's my mom's brother. And without him, I wouldn't have been able to put this all together. And at the end of the day, he really pushed me to get this done. We worked like 13-hour days because the guy just doesn't stop. And so when I would be doing kind of a not so great job about doing things, he would put me in line and say, "Come on, man, get your act together." And so this was really just a cool project that at the end of the day, we mission accomplished. We've got a nice covered, semi-covered space in our backyard. I don't have to mow as much grass. And that's a little fuzzy, but that's at night, put some lights up. There's a fire pit. So we've got all of those things put together, and we do spend a lot more time in our back area now. So that's the project. And as a result of doing all that work, kind of on to the next thing. My wife has really had a phase where she was really into road biking. So I was really resistant for like 3 years. And then she said, "Hey, let's do this Ride Idaho event." And I was like, I don't really want to do that, but I bought a bike, I bought some shoes, and then I realized that she was really tricky. For the 3 years prior to that, she had bought me every piece of gear that I needed for road biking, except for the bike and shoes. So once I did that, I was set. Last year's ride was from Coeur d'Alene, and we did a loop up through Montana and came back down and ended up in Coeur d'Alene. It was about 350 miles, I think. We battled some of the firefighters, had to do some detours. It's a supported ride, which means that there's people there to help you if you get into trouble, or there's rest stops along the way. We usually camp at a high school or a middle school or a park in the evenings. It's a great time. We met some really, really neat people.
1 minute days?
1 minute. It was 6 days. Unfortunately, this year my wife's not going to go with me, but you've met our CIO, Max Davis Johnson. Max he's a fitness freak, and he and I are going to be doing this bike ride again. Well, there's a new route this year. I'll explain that in a minute. And then also Brian McDevitt's going to join us. And now Brian doesn't want to do the ride. He's going to volunteer and support us. And he says that his job is to give Max and I a shot of tequila at the end of the ride every night. Because Brian goes through phases where he loves things. Like last year, paella. Did you guys have paella at this house last year? So big into paella. This year it's tequila. So yeah, and we bought him a still for a going away present. So he has a full still where he can brew whatever he wants. So this year's route, starting in Ketchum, and we're going to go east. Somewhere on here is Jackson Hole. So we're going from like resort town to resort town. And then we're going to end up in Idaho Falls. So that's the route. I'm looking forward to it. Matt, being the forward-thinking guy that he is, got us into town early this Monday, landed in Durango. We rented road bikes and did a 40-mile ride up somewhere around town. It was great. Now, it's not all about road biking. Sometimes you just kind of, don't know what's around the corner. This scared me. I was flying by down the road, and I looked down and I said, "I think I see an alligator." And the thing is, I'm from Twin Falls, and next to Twin Falls is a little town called Hagerman, and actually have an alligator farm in Hagerman. Water is really warm there. To my knowledge, the alligators have not made it into the Snake River, but that's always been in the back of my mind. I was riding by a golf course, and there's a big pond there next to the golf course, and I thought that could be really a real alligator. And no. So I had to go back, circle back around, and I picked it up. It was a little alligator toy. Somebody must have thrown it out the window. But anyways, so my project and a little bit about me, and then biking.
Great. Nice job, you did a great job. You stayed on time pretty much.
Not really, but,